Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina, sits on thousands of acres of forest land, a virtual green haven for students of the environment. Here is where Dr. Joseph Drew Lanham spends a lot of his time.
White-breasted nuthatch. When you come out into nature, it's a place where you can find peace, where you can find enjoyment, where you can be alone with yourself or with the other beings that live out in nature.
Dr. Lanham is a man for all seasons, and he spends most of them studying wildlife and the wonderful complexities of how forests, plants, and birds live. He grew up on a farm with lots of access to the outdoors.
I grew up loving birds and all other wildlife, and so here I am today doing what I love. We want to think about nature as something that we're a part of, not something that we're apart from. So if we think about nature as a partner, as a neighbor, as someone or something that we love, then we're sure to take care of it.
Lanham is a professor of wildlife and ecology at Clemson.
Well, at Clemson, as a wildlife professor, again, with a lot of my work being research, I spent a great deal of my career looking at what we call wildlife habitat relationships. That is, trying to understand how the birds, the deer, other species relate to forests and how we manage forests. So if we cut a forest or we manage a forest, for example, install a prescribed fire or something like that, how do the birds respond? How do the deer respond? We also spend, more recently, a great portion of our time doing research on African American land ethic. I have a project now called The Color of the Land in trying to understand, again, how African Americans relate to the land and the natural resources, i.e. the timber and wildlife that exist on their land. If we understand how different people, different ethnic groups relate to the land, then we have a better opportunity to help them conserve the land, help the land work for them, and connect pieces of land that used to be fragmented, thereby making it better for both people and for wildlife.
Dr. Drew Lanham and I had a discussion a few years back, and we wondered, how do African Americans appreciate the land and how do they perceive their land? And we decided to write up a proposal, and it got funded, and here we are today. It's been an enriching experience. Dr. Lanham was the only African American I found studying wildlife management. So he's been a mentor, he's been a good friend, and he can understand a lot of the perceptions that I have because of our cultural similarities. And he's taught me birding, about ornithology, and we both just been continually sharpening each other about studying African American land ethic. It's been a great experience. I'm very fortunate to have found somebody such as Dr. Drew Lanham.
Dr. Lanham has had a life-changing experience for me. I didn't know that there were African Americans, especially birders, in the same field as me, and I've never met one until I was a senior in college. Most of the African Americans that I did meet were either veterinarians or, working in the zoo aspect of wildlife. So he has definitely opened up my eyes to a new arena. He's given me another appreciation for understanding what I'm listening to in the woods.
Drew, as his friends call him, lives with his wife, son, and daughter near the university.
I'm so proud of Drew and all that he's accomplished with his work. And living with an environmentalist is really interesting and exciting. One of the things that he's done is gotten us as a family more aware of environmental issues. We have recycling bins in our home where we recycle glass products, newspapers, magazines, paper. He's made us aware of that. He's created what I call a backyard habitat in our yard where he has water fountains and he has bird feeders, and he has created an environment in the backyard that attracts wildlife, and that he's planted certain vegetation in the background that sort of complements the ecosystem, and he's really made a lot of environmental issues made us aware of those, as we probably wouldn't have known about if it hadn't been for him.
Lanham has taken members of his church on bird watches to introduce them to the variety of species in the area. His passion has had a significant effect on the pastor of his church.
I think Drew has helped me to, in a time of my life in my mid-40s to really reflect on what am I doing in my own life to make sure that I'm caring for myself so that I can be a good father, a good husband, and indeed a good pastor. And I think those are probably the things that I've enjoyed the most. Being a type A personality, and it's also important for me to become quiet. And I think spending time in nature, whether that's a quiet time on the golf course or walking a hiking trail up in the mountains, or even just out walking and looking at other scenes around our community. Those times of being quiet and being still, as the psalmist would say it, have been important lessons I think I've learned from Drew.
Drew has been a strong advocate for not only studying the forests, but taking an active part in appreciating the outdoors.
You don't have to be in a wilderness area to appreciate nature. Nature is just outside your back door. There may be robins that are in your backyard, maybe there are pigeons that are in your backyard. These are still creatures of nature that we need to understand and that we need to appreciate. Most of us are not very far away from a tree, or maybe we have the opportunities where we live to plant a tree, to visit a city park or garden. Perhaps it's a church community garden that we can participate in to help grow fresh fruits and vegetables for our community. Go out into the night sky sometimes and look up. Pay attention to a sunset, watch the sunrise. All of that is appreciating what nature has to give us, and so we can do that anywhere, whether we're in the country or the city. The natural world belongs to all of us, and the air that we breathe, the soil that we stand on, the trees that give us the very air that we breathe into our lungs belongs to all of us. No one color, race, or creed or nation owns the environment. And so I think as a people we need to be cognizant, we need to be aware of what the environment does for all of us. That it provides sustenance in the form of food, in the form of different goods and services, but it also provides solace. When you come out into nature, it's a place where you can find peace, where you can find enjoyment, where you can be alone with yourself or with the other beings that live out in nature. And so I think as a people, as African Americans, we have roots in the earth, whether that's Mother Africa, whether that's the Caribbean, whether it's wherever we came from. Maybe it's the South where we have relatives that still live on the land. We should all be aware of the environment and what it does for us, but we should also be aware of what we need to do to conserve the environment and keep it healthy so that future generations can benefit and enjoy what nature gives us.
Dr. Joseph Drew Lanham, one of Earth's caretakers.